I don't know, a lot of places have salad bars now. That's always a good deal, isn't it? Salad bar, free trip to the salad bar. There's a dream vacation.
Johnny Carson hosted thousands of comedians and performers during his long, powerful run on The Tonight Show. And for 3 straight decades, he controlled the vibe like a boss. Most guests could barely survive 7 minutes without tripping over their own timing, but some bombed so hard the cringe leaked straight through the TV screen. These were the moments where even Johnny Carson couldn't rescue the segment, no matter how smooth or quick he played it. Sometimes the guests were clearly nervous. Other times their delivery was stiff, offbeat, or just plain lifeless.
Oh, you're leaving for Hawaii, Lee?
Right after the show, yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Huh? Okay. On vacation, Lee, or what? Maybe a picture, or what?
No, I work on a boat over there.
Oh.
I'm a deckhand.
I see. Well, I don't laugh, folks. It's a funny business. One day you got the Academy Award, the next day you're saying, Charlie, throw the rope! But Lee, by the way, good, if you get a minute, Lee.
And then there were those who simply weren't funny at all, period. These are the 10 most painfully unfunny guests to ever sit across from Carson, starting with a moment that should have worked but totally crashed. Lee Marvin.
By the way, are you happy with Prime Cut, your new film with Gene Hackman? Are these toughies, Lee? Hey, if I'm going too fast, Lee, you let me know.
I've already done it. I did that a year ago.
Oh, wonderful. Then we'll go on to something else.
Back in the 70s, Don Rickles was guest hosting while Carson was on vacation, and Lee Marvin walked out as the guest. On paper, it looked like comedy gold. Rickles could roast a brick wall and make it entertaining.
Everyone was rather quiet. Yes, we didn't fly today, and I wonder why we didn't fly today, yes.
But didn't you tell me you
It's all becoming clear.
that you flew on a helicopter today?
I was in a helicopter today, being bounced up and down by some very nice gentlemen about 3 feet from the ground, but not yesterday. But Friday the 13th is
Today.
today.
But Marvin showed up stiff, guarded, and completely closed off from the jump. Rickles fired off jokes nonstop, trying to spark something because that's his whole style. Marvin shot everything down with short, clipped answers and that icy, tough guy stare.
Yesterday was a very bizarre day. Thank God it wasn't today.
It might have been.
Yesterday. It would have been very unfortunate.
The energy dropped fast, creating long, awkward silences that felt endless. Rickles finally bailed with, "Oh, wonderful, then we'll go on to something else." And even that landed flat. Marvin's ego gave Rickles nothing to work with, and the audience didn't laugh. They squirmed. That's the difference between playing a tough guy in movies and surviving a comedy couch. Then there was Peter O'Toole, whose first appearance turned legendary for all the wrong reasons. He showed up drunk, not charming drunk, but full-on rambling chaos.
Not easy being a vegetarian anymore. Except, well, I don't know, a lot of places have salad bars now. That's always a good deal, isn't it? Salad bar, free trip to the salad bar. There's a dream vacation.
He slurred through stories that made zero sense, convinced he was hilarious. Johnny sat there trapped, the crowd stayed silent, and the whole thing dragged like a slow wreck.
Glad to see the Olympics are coming to town. There's a lot of weird sports in the Olympics that you'll never see again. They should have the common sports in the Olympics, like fishing. Fishing's a great sport, isn't it? Why don't they have that in the Olympics? On your mark, set, go.
No punchlines, no rhythm, just pure secondhand embarrassment unfolding live on air. That appearance could have gone down quietly, but instead it became infamous.
Now, it is called My Journey Through Show Business.
No, it's called It Would Be So Nice If You Weren't Here.
Then below that it says My Journey Through Show Business.
My Journey.
Kind of an addenda.
Yes.
All right. Have you had an interesting journey through show business?
No.
Then why would somebody buy this? I mean, you tell a lot of anecdotes about your
That's
early
why
years.
I have to come out here, for it. I have no idea why they should buy it. No, that's the thing that I'm most proud of that I've ever done in my entire career.
Now we're getting something.
The awkwardness turned into full-blown The Tonight Show lore, not because it worked, but because it was so painfully strange people couldn't look away. It wasn't clever chaos, it was slow, uncomfortable tension unfolding live, second by second. Take Rich Hall, for example. His stand-up leaned dry, sarcastic, and reference-heavy, which is risky on a show where the crowd needs instant connection. His delivery stayed low energy and deadpan, almost like he was talking at the room instead of with it. You can literally watch Hall land technically funny lines and still get barely a reaction. The jokes weren't bad, but the energy didn't match the space. Once a comic feels the room slipping, every punchline suddenly feels heavier than the last. If Johnny Carson can't steer the vibe back fast, the whole set starts dragging like quicksand. That's why people remember Hall as bombing. Not because the material was weak, but because it didn't translate in that moment, on that couch, with that crowd. Sometimes being funny just isn't enough. You've got to be funny the right way for the right room. Then there's Charles Grodin, who seemed irritated by the entire idea of being on the show.
Of course I am.
You really care?
Yes.
What do you care about? I mean, in life. You care about anything?
He'd push Carson with aggressively earnest, borderline confrontational questions, turning interviews into what many called uncomfortable comedy. Grodin would openly taunt Carson on his own stage, asking if he even cared about guests or anything beyond television. Carson tried playing along at first, but you could see the patience draining. As Grodin kept pressing, Johnny snapped back on air, clearly fed up. The audience didn't know whether to laugh or cringe. Confused chuckles filled the room, and viewers later flooded NBC with angry letters calling Grodin disrespectful. That's the risk of anti-comedy. Push it too far, and it stops being clever and starts being annoying. And then there's Chevy Chase. His biggest problem on Carson was simple. His strongest weapon was physical comedy and sarcasm, but the talk show couch rewards warmth, timing, and fast conversational energy above everything else. When that spark doesn't hit, even big names can fall flat. Hard. When Chevy Chase let his energy turn prickly or defensive, the laughs stopped instantly. The room would freeze because the vibe shifted from playful banter to real tension. Instead of fun back and forth, it felt sharp, stiff, and uncomfortable in a way no joke could save. There's a famous brutal quote from Johnny Carson that still gets talked about to this day. Johnny once said Chase couldn't ad-lib a fart after a baked bean dinner. That wasn't playful roasting, that was a public execution by Carson standards. Johnny almost never aired his real opinions like that. What Carson was really saying was clear. Chase needed everything planned, written, and locked in. He struggled with spontaneous riffing, the kind of effortless flow that great talk show guests pull off without thinking twice. And once you notice it, you can't unsee it in Chase's Carson appearances. Anytime the conversation drifted even slightly off script, Chase visibly tightened up. The charm drained, the confidence faded, and awkwardness rushed in. He'd lean on sarcasm that felt cutting instead of clever, mean instead of playful. The audience responded with that deadly silence, the kind where no one knows if laughing would be wrong. Critics and retrospectives later pointed out those same pauses, stiff monologues, and segments that just didn't land. The tension wasn't imagined, it was baked into the moment. Then there's Bob Hope, often labeled unfunny on Carson, not because he lacked legacy, but because his appearances felt painfully prepackaged. Multiple accounts say Carson privately grew frustrated because Hope arrived with jokes already written on index cards. Instead of engaging naturally, Hope would sit there, waiting for his turn to read the next line. He wasn't reacting, he was reciting. The result was a strange, lifeless energy where jokes technically existed, but nothing felt alive or spontaneous. The audience laughed politely because it was Bob Hope and respect demanded it. But it wasn't real joy, it was obligation. You could feel the difference. When a guest sounds like they're reading straight from a script, the whole exchange feels fake. Carson built The Tonight Show on spontaneity and authentic conversation. Hope showed up with old-school vaudeville timing that clashed hard with Carson's format. That mismatch made Hope seem dated and unfunny in the moment, even though his career was legendary. That's exactly why Bob Hope gets singled out in Johnny Carson lore as the ultimate example of what not to do on a talk show. Hope was a legendary killer who made people laugh for decades across movies, radio, and live stages. But on The Tonight Show, his approach felt completely off. He came in polished, rehearsed, and locked into old-school timing that clashed hard with Carson's loose, spontaneous style. Incredible career, wrong playbook. Carson's couch wasn't built for pre-written setups. It thrived on real-time energy, and Hope just didn't adapt. Then there's Rich Little, whose biggest strength also became his biggest weakness. His act was all rapid-fire celebrity impressions, back-to-back, non-stop. At first, it sounded impressive, but for many viewers, it quickly turned tedious. It felt like sitting through an endless parade of voices without real punchlines underneath. The entire joke was basically, listen how accurate this sounds. That only works if the audience instantly recognizes the celebrity and actually cares. If they didn't, the room went dead silent. There was no joke structure holding it together. Just mimicry. That recognition dependency is exactly why impression-heavy guests often get labeled flat and boring, even when the skill level is insane. You're watching technique, not comedy. Skill alone doesn't make people laugh. Little's long run on the show eventually ended on a sour note. He performed a Johnny Carson impression that Carson, and reportedly his lawyer, felt crossed a personal line. Whether it was truly offensive or just Carson being sensitive about being mocked on his own stage depends on who you ask. But one thing's clear, the booking stopped immediately after. The deeper issue was shelf life. Once you've heard all the voices, there's nothing new left. Same act, same impressions, every time. Impressions without strong writing are just party tricks, and party tricks get old fast on television. And then there's Charlie Callis. His comedy was loud, frantic, and packed with wild sound effects. When it hit, it absolutely destroyed the room. When it missed, it turned desperate and uncomfortable fast. Callis was pure chaos. The crowd either loved it or tapped out completely. There was no middle ground. On Carson's couch, that kind of high-volume madness was always a gamble. And when it didn't land, you could feel the tension instantly. The story everyone loves to repeat goes like this. One night, Charlie Callis was completely bombing, and Johnny Carson hit him with that famous bomb sound effect after a joke flatlined. According to the legend, Callis snapped, physically shoved Carson, and got permanently banned from The Tonight Show on the spot. That version of the story became straight-up Tonight Show mythology. But here's where things get messy. That legend is heavily disputed by multiple people who were actually there. There was even a published correction later stating clearly that Callis did not shove Carson, and Carson never announced any kind of ban on air. So, the viral version people repeat isn't rock-solid fact. So what really happened that night? Honestly, nobody can say with 100% certainty. What is clear is how people remember the vibe. Viewers recall the appearance as painfully awkward and hard to sit through. As the laughs didn't come, Callis got louder, more frantic, and more desperate by the second. The studio energy got weird fast. Carson didn't need to say anything. His body language said it all. He leaned back, pulled away, and made it obvious the bit wasn't working. Whether there was a physical shove or not almost doesn't matter. The tension was already off the charts. That night became infamous as a textbook example of a comedian spiraling when the audience isn't with them. What made Callis unfunny in that moment wasn't the material, it was the desperation. Watching someone push harder, louder, and faster for laughs that just aren't coming is brutal. It's uncomfortable for everyone in the room. That's why the legend grew so big over time. The details may have been exaggerated, but the disaster feeling was real. Ironically, Carson's own bombs are remembered fondly because he never panicked. He flipped failure into humor and made the miss part of the joke. There are still surviving monologues where punchlines land with little to no reaction at all. You can hear the silence. And instead of dodging it, Johnny Carson openly acknowledged it, riffing directly on the quiet like it was part of the plan. He never pretended it didn't happen. In one famous moment, when the room stayed completely flat, Johnny pivoted into a physical bit on the spot. He turned pure embarrassment into a brand new laugh opportunity. That ability to flip failure into fuel was rare and powerful. There are also clips where even Carson hits a dead stretch. Joke after joke falls flat, nothing lifts, and the audience just sits there politely waiting for something to work. That's exactly why Carson bombing became legendary in late-night history. Even the master had off nights. The difference is how he handled it. Most guests panicked, got defensive, or tried pushing harder. Carson just shrugged, smiled, and made the bomb part of the show. That calm confidence separated him from everyone else who failed on The Tonight Show. Then, there's Fred Rogers, who wasn't a joke guy at all. Some viewers labeled his appearances unfunny simply because he didn't play by late-night rules. On his 1980 Carson appearance, the laughs came from contrast. Johnny brought parody energy, while Rogers stayed calm, sincere, and grounded. He didn't volley jokes back. He answered gently and honestly. That made it feel like jokes were bouncing off him, even though that was exactly the point. Rogers spoke slowly and thoughtfully, like he was talking to one person instead of a studio full of people waiting for punchlines. That alone shattered the late-night contract and left some viewers unsure how to react. Most viewers were used to Johnny Carson tossing setups the same way he always did. But Fred Rogers answered like a real human being, not a comedian. He didn't deflect, didn't escalate, and didn't try to win the moment. He just stayed present and answered honestly. For some people, that read as awkward or flat. The usual rhythm never kicked in. There was no joke volley, no competitive banter, no payoff laugh to release the tension. The silence lingered longer than most comedy audiences are comfortable with. You could feel the crowd unsure of their role. Should they laugh or listen? Rogers didn't guide them toward laughter because he wasn't there to entertain in that way. He was there to connect, and that difference matters. Late-night audiences are trained to react fast and loud. Rogers quietly asked them to slow down without ever saying it out loud. What made it even more uncomfortable for some viewers was that Carson clearly respected him. Johnny leaned in instead of pushing harder. That's rare on The Tonight Show. Carson usually controlled the rhythm completely. With Rogers, he softened his energy and let the moment breathe. That silent choice told the audience this wasn't a bit failing. It was a different kind of exchange altogether. Rogers also stripped irony out of the room. Late-night comedy thrives on sarcasm and self-awareness. Rogers didn't operate there at all. He said exactly what he meant and meant exactly what he said. That level of sincerity can make people squirm. There's no joke armor, no sarcasm, no wink to hide behind. He was gentle on a stage built for sharpness. So when people say Rogers was unfunny on Carson, what they're really reacting to is discomfort, not failure. He wasn't bombing. He was refusing to play the role they expected. He wasn't there to be clever, edgy, or fast. He was there to be kind, steady, and sincere in a space that rarely allowed that tone to exist for more than a few seconds. That mismatch is exactly why some viewers called it awkward, while others remember it as strangely unforgettable. It wasn't comedy dying. It was comedy stepping aside. Now let us know. Which of these moments made you cringe the hardest? Do you think some of these guests were actually funny but just had a bad night? And are there other Tonight Show guests you remember bombing that didn't make this list? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you want more deep dives into the awkward, uncomfortable, forgotten side of late-night history, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with RumorFame. We'll see you on the next one.